Hey, Tara Strong here, and you're listening to the Geekcast Radio Network.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Cinema Geeks. I am one of your Cinema Geeks, Optimus Solo. Joining me today is Hard Candy Mandy. Hello.
Oh, hey.
Movie Revolt Dan. Hello.
Hello.
And Fridley Sent.
Hiya.
Hiya. Hello. How are we doing? We are here back again to delve into the world of video game films, whether we like it or not. In other words, we've entered that part of the series where we're all questioning if this was a good idea to begin with. That means we're into the UA Bowl section of video game films, and that, hopefully most people know, is not a good thing. So we're going to be talking about Alone in the Dark today as our next video game film to go over. It's been a while. We haven't talked video game films since back in 2016, such a long time ago. We're back, ready to do it again. And before we get into this one, Amanda, what was your excitement level for Alone in the Dark?
I thought I had seen this before, so I thought I remembered liking it, but apparently none of those things were true.
That's a good thing.
I guess, yeah.
Dan, are you as excited as I am to get more into video game films?
Excitement is not a word that I associate with anything that has happened with the last two video game films or anything, maybe moving forward, looking what's ahead. So no, excitement isn't a word I would use.
I think you're correct. Excitement's not the good word. I think for me, the word is intrigue. And what intrigues me is from here on out, what will be the worst film we talk about?
Frightened would be a word.
Frightened, yes. Frightened and intrigued on what exactly will take the crown as the worst film that we cover during this entire series. Matt, what about you? What level of excitement are you at to restart this video game series here now that it's 2017?
I'm excited to move away from the current movie onto any other movie. I'm real excited for those 3 Blood Rain movies whenever those happen.
I don't know how to be excited or not because I haven't seen any of the movies going forward, I don't think, until we get right to the end. So it's going to be, I don't know what I'm getting myself into. I don't know if each film's going to be worse or if there's going to be a hidden gem somewhere, but my hopes for that are dwindling by the moment. Alone in the Dark is a 2005 release, directed, produced by UA Bowl, and it's starring Christian Slater, Tara Reid, and Stephen Dorff. Let's start, Matt, because I know you had a little bit of time to check out the Alone in the Dark video games, not through playing them, but through visual aspects as far as watching playthroughs, etc. So what is your take on the Alone in the Dark video games?
Oh, man. Alone in the Dark, action-adventure, 3D, sure, polyagonal, third-person game, originally released on DOS and Windows. It's come out on a number of systems, and it has recently had revitalization as most recent as 2015. The whole series, you're always Edward Carnby, and then you're just in a mansion trying to figure out what's going on. You have other options in the first game to play other characters, but I think every game after that is just Carnby. And it's just literally like a Hugo's House of Horrors or any of these other, even a little I think the first Resident Evil or the first Silent Hill game. You're just wandering this one house for the whole game, and you're just finding things, picking things up, finding clues. This one eventually takes you to a hell pit underneath the mansion, and you fight a demon or some weird thing, which, isn't exactly not following this movie. Loosely based.
All right. Has anybody in the panel actually played any of the Alone in the Dark games, Amanda?
No.
Dan?
Not in the least. So
I have not either. So, and I think unfortunately that's going to have to be somewhat of a trend, I think, going forward for a lot of the games we're still going to be covering, because I think in the beginning of this series, there's a lot of kind of more iconic video games or kind of widespread, and I think outside of a few that'll still come, that there's going to be a lot that I haven't played, especially some of these more kind of like horror type video games. But I think there's maybe like 2 remaining that I've actually played. So I don't know how much we'll be able to get into the actual game and how well it relates to that. But Matt, since you did get a chance to watch the watch-through, let's go to you right away as far as how well this lives up or how well it represents the actual game. Is there any connections whatsoever besides the main character type name?
Oh, could we say main character gender as well? Because it's pretty loose. I guess there's some like horror and scary elements between the two, but really Alone in the Dark movie feels more like an action movie that just happens to have scary monsters in it than being a scary monster movie that happens to have action in it. And I guess there's some light detective work in the movie. Oh, after that it becomes less and less of a connection. Because, I mean, even the main character, Carnby in the original game, it's set in, like, the 1920s, and he's a middle-aged detective.
Okay.
And in this one, he's, like, 90210, and I don't even know what his job was at the beginning of this movie.
he's a
He was a
paranormal
paranormal
investigator.
That knows all kinds of self-defense moves. But, yeah, I mean, according to what we can find here, what I could find just on some main web pages, I mean, obviously the name is the same. We know that there's some sort of paranormal essence to both the game and the film. And from there on out, it seems like it's pretty loose as far as how well it's even resembling the game in any way, shape, or form. I mean, a couple other minor details that may be similar, but it does not seem like they made a very strong effort to do anything that the game is doing, from what I can read. But like I said, I haven't actually played the games. So let's more so treat this one and get into the actual movie. I use that word loosely as well. But Dan, let's get your opinion first, just overall, your first reaction of the film, and then we'll get into some more specifics here in a little bit.
My first reaction is like, when the first 5 minutes is text that seemingly goes on forever, this is not a good sign. I'm like, I'm already confused, and no one's appeared on screen yet, so not looking good.
I actually went back and counted. I rewound and replayed the opening scroll to see if I could count how many paragraphs were used. I think it was like 9 to 10 different paragraphs in that opening scroll. And it's like, it's not like it's simple text that they're throwing out there. I mean, simple, I guess, as far as like something that would easily introduce you to a film, because they start talking about these Abkhani people, and then they immediately go and talk about the artifacts of them, and then they start talking about this bureau. Then they name drop the guy Hudgens, who's in charge of the bureau. Then they start talking about experiments that he's doing, and then we get into lost souls, like all so fast.
And I read that they added that after test screenings, which I'm surprised they did test screenings for this, because, dear God, they added that to make it less confusing. It did not help. It's not like I was watching the movie thinking, let me think back to that opening scroll to clear up the comprehension that I'm lacking at the moment in time. No, this movie is pretty awful as you can get. I don't think it's as bad as the House of the Dead, but it's also not as interestingly bad. Like, I think House of the Dead had some like moments that were just flat out crazy, where this is just utterly dull. Like, it's just so dull. Like, nothing happens. Who thought it? Like, what would be a great idea if we do action scenes that are in the dark and you can't see anything? Like, that's not that. Yeah,
well,
it's just
it's way cheaper that way, Dan. Way cheaper.
It's a lot cheaper.
We'll get into some of the effects that are used, or I don't know. I feel weird qualifying anything about this movie, but let's get general thoughts from you, Matt. What was your first take on seeing this film?
Oh man, I mean, like, Dan hit it. Like, I started writing. I wanted to write down the beats, right? I'm trying to make myself a better writer. I'm trying to see what other writers have done, and done successfully and done terribly. And I took a page of notes, and it's just like, the voiceover is about a lot of things. Oh, this voiceover is way too long. We're already at 2 minutes. And then it's just like, everything else ends in question marks. There's a kid running in forest. Are the adults looking for him? Is this guy buying orphans? Like, oh, more voiceover? Like, it's just, all I have is question marks about this movie. Like, why?
Okay, before we get into detail, Amanda, you like this type of genre as far as like the horror supernatural elements. You like this kind of a lot of movies that are loosely about similar things. You were not a fan of this film either.
Hell no, I couldn't even watch the whole thing. Like, my brain went into like self-preservation mode, and I just fell asleep because it couldn't take any more of Tara Reid's quote-unquote acting.
Oh, yeah.
And dude, just because you're wearing glasses, we're not going to believe that you're smart. Like, it's not working. And I was also lost as soon as the beginning stroll started happening. I'm like, I have no idea what any of those things meant. And
I was so busy counting how many paragraphs there were that even after watching it twice, I had no idea what they had told me.
yeah, and then Christian Slater's voiceover. It was like some weird fourth wall thing, and then the opening action scene, I was just not even on board anymore, like in the first 5 minutes, and I was done. So I also got like a page of so-called notes here, and it was bad. And I watch B and C rated horror movies who are much better than this, and they have less known actors. So yeah, I don't know what the fuck happened here.
I'm going to make it a 4 for 4 on the Crap Fest on Alone in the Dark, because this is god-awful. I'm still on the fence, Dan, when it comes to this and House of the Dead. I do agree with your point, though, that you made about the two films, but I think it's going to be like a contest of just ineptitude when it comes to the video game series, as far as who's going to be at the bottom of the pile. This movie is bad on every possible level. Like, the writing is terrible, the acting is terrible, the visual effects are terrible, the music, score, soundtrack, whatever you want to call it, all sounds and music in this movie are terrible.
The music is aggressively terrible. It's like it's like yelling at you how bad it is. It's like, please. Oh,
it's yelling at you in a lot of ways, and it's like, it's so bad and it's so aggressive that even when the movie ends, it's not done like insulting you. Like, the last moment of the movie happens, and then all of a sudden the music is on like volume 100 and still like making no sense to whatever we're watching on the screen. So like I said, I can't find a single aspect of this film to say something good about, but let's see if any of us can as we kind of make our way through this. So
at least House of the Dead had an excuse. There was no well-known actors. There was
Ron Howard's brother.
Oh, yeah.
Well-known actor.
Well, not Sharknado known, so...
True.
Well, let's start with the acting then. So, is there any element, is there any person, is there any character that did a decent job or that was at least serviceable from an acting standpoint, Dan?
The security guard had a moment or two. The one that gets killed. The one's like, that's the Akani tribe, because that's a thing people should know about. No, not at all. Tara Reid is like, she existed in this movie only to make Denise Richards feel good for being a scientist in a James Bond film.
Dan, I literally have this written down on my paper. I said, worse, Tara Reid as curator or Denise Richards in James Bond. That's just like...
Just, no. Oh, man. It has the most gratuitous sex scene I've ever seen in my life.
What makes that so bad, though, is that right before that, like a scene before, Christian Slater, they give him the line, "We'll hook up later."
He didn't mean we
I
were literally going to
understand that, but they literally put that in there, and then it's like a scene later, and they were hooking up. Like, and not only that,
nobody says that anymore.
They did back in 2005.
We'll see.
And Christian Slater was still probably thinking 90s style.
Dude, they couldn't even afford getting the dude a real shirt in this movie. He's wearing a black tank top the entire time with the most fugly jacket I've ever seen in my life.
And then, like, the music, like, immediately hits right before that scene that's like, this is about to be a sex scene. So that was bad. And it was like set up so, like, everything about their characterization and their relationship was set up bad. Like, before we even know they have a relationship, that security guard has a line where he says, like, at least it'll take your mind off your boyfriend.
Which, we never meet, right? He never comes into play ever. Like, he's never.
I don't know
if
if they were
talking about Christian Slater.
Yeah, I couldn't decide if later on if they were referring to Christian Slater, but it was like it made no sense in that moment why he would say that to her, to an audience. Like, we had no reason to know who her boyfriend was or why she would need to take her mind off of him.
Yeah, I thought he was referring to another a person that we just was cut out of the movie that never came into play.
Which could be.
Stephen Dorff, I guess, like, he wasn't as bad, maybe? Like, that's if we're just grading on a curve.
Outside of that last scene where he has the dramatic turn to sacrifice.
Which, again, made no sense. It's like, you don't need to do... This is not... You can just set it off. All right, you're dead.
He's like, I'm out of range, and in order to be in range, I need to be touching it.
How did we get all the way to the end already, Kevin? You just totally skipped a ton of awful shit.
We're talking about Stephen Dorff, and that was his moment of glory in this film. Okay, I will back up then. Well, let's go back to the beginning, because in the very opening of this movie, there's a scene with Christian Slater on an airplane. All right? And there's a kid sitting next to him, and the kid says, because Christian Slater's like sweating or, nervous or panicky.
He had a nightmare.
He had a nightmare, he woke up, blah, blah, blah. It makes no sense that kid says there's nothing to be afraid of in the dark. Like, this guy is having a panic attack on an airplane. He would be afraid of heights. He would be afraid of something else. Like, for the kid to say there's nothing...
Or being on an airplane.
Yeah, like... That line was so... Like, I knew from the very first line that we were in for a treasure when it came to the dialogue in this film. And, like, and it wasn't that he was just on a plane. It'd be different if he was on a plane at night. He was on a plane in the middle of the daylight. Like, there was light all around. So I get what you're saying, maybe that he was afraid, like, because he was sleeping and his eyes were shut, so it was dark in his head. I don't know, like, what? I don't know. That line made no sense. Anything else towards the beginning of the film, since Amanda wants to keep things in line here? What was your take at the beginning when you're introduced to all these characters, Amanda?
The fact that being a paranormal investigator gives you skills like a ninja. And that we have no idea why this bald guy is, like, the worst assassin ever, because just crashing everything, like, he's not even trying to be slick about it, and then getting shot 60 times, and then still coming at him. I didn't understand what the hell was going on. Yeah, I mean, but don't throw some weird shit at me up front. Like, that's just gonna make me question everything that's going on effects-wise. Like, clearly this dude should be dead, and they're not seeing much paranormal stuff coming out of him until he, like, jumps like 60 feet in the air. But yeah, it was just...
The other thing that scene introduced us to early on in the film was the visual effects that they were going to use in fight scenes.
Oh my god, it was the worst, like, slow-mo, like, awful kung fu movie effect that was not in place here at all.
It was so weird, the times that they decided to go from slow motion to, like, almost like a sped up, like, accelerated motion, back to slow motion to regular speed, like... I don't know what was worse, that scene with the slow-mo speed up, or the fighting in the dark, or, like, just the general, like, strobe light effect that they used in that one fighting scene. Was any of the fighting scene, Matt, was any of the fights in this movie fun to watch, well done, choreographed well, effects-wise, anything?
Was it even reminiscent of the game? Like, at one point it kind of looked like they were trying to have, like, a video game feel when all the, like, the gunshots were going on, and all you saw was flashes of them in the dark shooting stuff. But I don't know if that even really looked like the game or not. Did it, Matt?
No, I mean, the game looks so bad because it's, like 30 years old. So, like, it's like that in that, only, like, this doesn't have an excuse because it's pretty modern. Like, literally that first fight scene, I wrote down, other taxi attacks. The attacking driver just left his taxi. Oh, he's on the roof! This is the laziest fight scene. Terrible choreography. Terrible. I just kept writing terrible because there's just nothing to bite onto here. Like, I don't even know. And like, I guess I was like a weird like, oh, I could put him on that spike, but it doesn't even really like. In some ways, it doesn't really lead you to believe that could happen, while still like super like showing you this is what's gonna happen. Like, ah.
Dan, what about a character that we haven't talked about? What about the aliens themselves?
They were aliens?
They were demons, I think.
Demons, aliens, whatever this creature was.
They had technology to make them invisible, and it dealt with electricity. I didn't get that either.
They were poorly rendered for sure. I think there might be like if you were look at like the art, if they did like a
rendering of it,
like the original artwork that they based it off of might look okay. They were kind of generic looking. They look like gigantic scorpions in a way. I don't know. They didn't look all that fancy. But to get to the opening scene, like that car chase was as thrilling as watching like little kids in bumper cars, because it was so. I think they turned once. Like that was like why you didn't even try to get away from him. He's just hitting him with his car, and he's just like, I guess I'll just stay here and let hit me with the car. And then I never saw someone jump on a fence more awkwardly than that guy did. Like the bald guy when he jumps on the
oh yeah,
it just looked so weird. Like his entire hand fit in the. It was weird. I don't know. I just thought that was really weird looking. It's a weird thing to nitpick in a movie that has huge issues, but still. But yeah, the creatures were kind of. It's hard to see them because they're invisible or they're black and the room's always dark. But they often look they look like cheap versions of the aliens, xenomorphs, basically.
Yeah, Matt, what do you think about the alien or the demon presence, as well as the I guess the parasite version that was inside these some of these individuals?
I mean, there's nothing more to say. The only thing I have to say is at the very beginning in that voiceover that let us know that this was all going to happen. It's all like, hey, some Native Americans summoned a demon, then they mysteriously disappeared, and it's like, it's not really mysterious, you summoned a demon. Like, I mean, that's not a logical following of those sentences. Like, there's nothing to say, man. They're terrible. They look bad. They look cheap. This movie was made on the cheap, as, horror movies usually are, only way too much, and then didn't make half of its budget back worldwide.
It did cost $20 million.
$20 million.
Can anyone explain to me where $1 million of that went?
Probably Tara Reid.
She didn't even show a boobie. Like, how much does that cost?
How much did Tara Reid's boobs cost?
Apparently more than $20 million. So, Amanda, you're good on the fashion. You're good on checking out the gear. What did you think of the outfits that the Bureau 713, especially the girl at the control center, was wearing?
I don't get it. It looks like some cross between tactical gear and some dominatrix stuff. And
she was just the one on the phone. It's like she's just on the computer.
Why do you need with the hat on and stuff? They both had matching hats on, and why do you need your hat on and you're just rolling around in a chair behind a computer and your buddy's got the same hat on? It was unisex. I don't know. It looked like a 90s music video.
I'll say something good about the film. The response time of the 713 is definitely faster than any emergency service we have in present day. Because they were immediately wherever they needed to be, dropping through windows, glass ceilings, and all kinds of stuff, in a moment's notice.
Yeah, in a heartbeat. Before they even knew that there was a problem going on, these motherfuckers were crashing through windows and rappelling down from everywhere.
Oh my goodness. Yeah, I don't know what else to say about this film. I mean, it is the guy on the ship with Hudgens, the guy that opens up the gold box to begin with. Was he trying to do weird voices, or was that?
That guy's just creepy like that in everything he's in.
It sounded like the voice wasn't even coming from his body.
No, he's got a weird voice like that.
Okay. The voices, just in general, from a lot of the characters seemed off on me. The music, like we said, is terrible. Dan, anything good that we can come up with at all? ever.
There was like a scene where you saw like one of the soldiers' heads was like kind of weirdly exploded. It was like, which I thought was actually looked cool is a weird word to say, but it was like a interesting way of doing a head explosion where she was still kind of alive. I don't know. That was kind of freaky, and I'm like, wow, that actually looks, compared to everything else, like some decent makeup work went into that. Like it's like almost Walking Dead-esque. So that was one positive. Those 13 seconds, I can, but I can't really think of much else, to be honest.
My notes stop at Christian Slater's funked up coat. So.
Did you have any notes that you did not get to talk about, Amanda?
Other than the fact that scene in the beginning, that dude went through 2 windows in like a minute. There was like one crash through window, another crash through window, and I'm like, is everybody just going to be crashing through windows? And they were, because the 713 dudes were crashing through windows constantly too. Like they just wanted to come in somewhere, they couldn't use the door, they had to crash in through windows. That was the theme through this. If you want to get in somewhere, you go through the fucking window.
All right. I wanted to go over some numbers for the film. Obviously, like we said, it made its budget was $20 million. It only made $10 million.
It made $10 million. It made half that fucking thing back.
Yep.
Among the 6 billion people in the world.
Oh wow.
And some critical response data. Here we go. Rotten Tomatoes, 1%. It has a 1% based on 117 reviews. That's not just 4 or 5 reviews. Based on 117 reviews, it's got a 1%.
Too high.
Yeah, and the consensus on Rotten Tomatoes, inept on almost every level. So,
we can remove the almost. I don't know.
Right.
Yeah.
A Metacritic score, 9 out of 100. 9 out of 100. And there's, everybody's citing the same stuff. Awful acting, plot holes, lack of connection to the video game, poor quality special effects, numerous editing mistakes. I guess there's one, I must have missed this. There's a scene where a female soldier is killed, and then she lifts her head once the camera crew moves away that you can see.
Oh, yeah, that was a great moment. I'm like, she's alive. Oh, no, that was a mistake. Okay, no.
It also does have some awards.
Awards?
Golden Raspberries.
What's a Golden Raspberry?
It's for like the worst films and the worst things. So it got nominated. Tara Reid got nominated for Worst Actress, and Uwe Boll got nominated and won for Worst Director for that year. Nice. So there is that. Apparently, there was a different script at one point for this film. And what I thought was funny is the guy who did it, who was trying to make it a lot more close to the game. If I'm getting my information first, okay, so Blair Erickson wrote A Treatment of Alone in the Dark and has written a critical account of his experience working with Uwe Boll, in which Erickson alleges that Boll stole ideas from prior movies and wanted to add elements to the story that were not true to the tone of the source material. Uwe Boll chose to not use Erickson's script, citing reasons such as it having, quote, not enough car chases.
There was one car chase.
Remember back to earlier when I said the entire video game takes place in one building.
But he's saying that there wasn't enough car chases in this guy's script, and he added a half of a car chase?
Straight away car chase.
I don't understand this. Oh my goodness gracious. And some more stuff from Uwe Boll, apparently, and I did not watch the Alone in the Dark DVD commentary. So
Who did?
I apologize for that, but I want to give you some information from it so you don't have to watch it either. Uwe Boll responds to criticism that his adaptations make significant changes to the plot and style of the source material. Here's a quote from Uwe Boll. Fans are always totally flipping out, and I understand that the fan of a video game has his own agenda in his head and has his ideas about what is a good movie and what is a bad movie. I think I made this is referring to House of the Dead at the time, I think I made a perfect House of the Dead movie because it really shows how the game is. It's a lot of fun. It's over-the-top action. So apparently he thinks he's go ahead.
He's German. Does he not know what the word fun actually means? Is it maybe a language barrier thing? Or he thinks like fun and like torture I mean, he's German, so that could be also. Maybe he's just a masochist. It's always a possibility.
He clearly doesn't understand things, and he's one of those that is. I mean, there's so much on record of him stating how wrong everybody is that says anything bad about his films, whether it's critics, whether it's fans, whether it's whatever. He's obviously always consistent that he's making good films, but I have heard that he recently is actually retiring, and it's not because of the petition that was made that needed 1 million signatures in order to force him to retire. That came up a little bit short, but apparently he's running out of funds to make his films, so he's being forced in that way to go into retirement.
So nobody will pay him to make this shit anymore.
The way he's been making these films is controversial in alone and of itself, because he's taking advantage of like a loophole in the German tax code to like
if they make shitty movies
to have his movies funded, but now that's not working or whatever because they closed the tax loophole in like 2006 or something. So now his funds are running out and he's not able to make films anymore. From what I read, I don't know if that's all true or not, but all right, let's go around the table and give a final grade for Alone in the Dark. Matt, out of 10, what do you give Alone in the Dark?
Oh man.
And where does it rank as far as the bottom of the barrel? Is it the worst we've seen? Is there something that's worse than it?
Okay, so I'm gonna give Alone in the Dark 2 out of 10, only because I also watched Alone in the Dark 2.
Wow.
And that deserves a 1.
Do you have the same actors in that?
No, get this. Edward Carnby is Asian in the second one. They're fighting a ghost witch in the second one, like, which is really weird because at the end of the first one they kind of leave it open where it's like, oh hey, we blew up like a nuclear bomb in the demon realm, but the door might not have closed. And then the second one they're like, hey, why don't we do a ghost witch? And then like it's got Danny Trejo in it though. I mean, it's got that going for it.
Oh my.
But like literally, here's the thing: the second movie has none of the same actors, not a single same actor, none of the same directors, and I think none of the same writers. The only credit that the two share in common is that Uwe Boll produced them both, if that counts for anything. And the second one is worse. The second one is, I think, the worst movie I've ever seen. And I routinely, for over a year, had a thing where me and my friends tried to find the worst movies we've ever could find and watch them. And this one takes the cake as far as my memory can muster. It is so bad. So, like, the first one's bad, the second one's the worst.
Lance Henriksen is in that sequel too. Lance Henriksen and Danny Trejo. So, Dan, where would you score Alone in the Dark, and is it the worst film we've talked about?
Oh man, I think it is worse than House of the Dead. That's a battle of really bad movies right there. One thing we didn't talk about was the ending. And,
I was going to ask about that. Yeah.
So they made a sequel even though like everyone's dead. But I guess it doesn't matter because they're different actors. So I was confused about like. Where did everybody go? Did they just disappear? Is that supposed to be a mystery? I don't know.
Matt, what was your take on that? Because I was trying to figure that out too. Because were we supposed to believe that while they were down doing all that somehow these monsters killed everybody on the planet, or was it something else, or what in God's name was that about?
Oh, I forgot. Don't they come out of the demon hole and then like New York City's empty, isn't it?
And then we're led to believe that they get killed right at the end. I assume.
Oh, because there's like a growl or whatever before the credits?
And the camera goes at them, and it's looking like they're getting attacked, and everybody else is dead, so we should assume they're going to die.
Oh, maybe the Carnby in the second movie is in an alternate reality where he's Asian. Like, you couldn't get Christian Slater again? He hasn't done anything. Like...
But I mean,
it's Mr. Robot now.
What was the explanation for everything to be gone, and what killed everybody?
What do you mean explanation? This is Alone in the Dark.
Oh my goodness.
I forgot the ending of that movie. They don't even address it at all. Like I said, the second movie doesn't have demons in it. It's about a witch, and I actually don't know what's going on in the second movie. And I watched it this week. I don't know what was going on in that movie at any point.
Was there a third movie?
No. There shouldn't have been a second. The second one isn't even on Box Office Mojo. Like, if you Google it in Box Office, you can find, if you search it on Box Office Mojo, Alone in the Dark 2, you'll find nothing. But if you go to Google and search Alone in the Dark 2 Box Office, you'll find a link going back to some shadow page on Box Office Mojo that's like, hey, it released in the United Arab Emirates and got $20. Like, there's almost no information on that movie. Like, I can't imagine why a movie would get a sequel when the first one didn't make half its budget back.
Yeah. Well, that's the reason why, because they,
It does hold the sequel does hold an 11% on Rotten Tomatoes.
That's wrong. That's wrong.
And it is apparently available in America as a Blu-ray release exclusively sold by Best Buy.
I bought it for a penny on Amazon and I regret it.
Dan, any other thoughts on your closing?
I would say I would put this as last because I don't think I've ever seen a movie that had more plot where nothing happens. There's so much story, it's so convoluted, yet nothing really happens. It's like, how do you manage to accomplish both of those things? It was pretty incredible. So, yeah, this is probably bottom of the barrel for me, but it's just because there were some moments in House of Dead that were so off the wall crazy, where I felt this one was just poorly. It was just it was so done.
No words.
There were no words. Yeah.
Matt, according to IGN, sorry, a guy that reviewed the sequel, quote, Uwe Boll's Alone in the Dark did not require a sequel. Critics hated the film, fans hated the film. Thankfully, though, Alone in the Dark 2 is actually a much better film than the first. It's a touch light on action, and the setting is far more limited in terms of production design, but the tone is a little more in keeping with the ideas of the game franchise.
I mean, I don't know, man. The whole movie is like, there's a dagger, but I don't know what the dagger's significance is. There was a lady, and she might have been sacrificed, she might have been buried, but she's a ghost witch. But then she gets the hearts of people because it's like, hey, I'll give my heart to that ghost witch for no benefit to anyone. But now my wife's dead. But don't worry, I'm gonna give my daughter's heart to the ghost witch. But if you touch the dagger,
stop. I can't take any more of this. I can't take any more of this. My brain already tried to erase the fact that I watched Alone in the Dark yesterday. Within a 24-hour period, I subconsciously eliminated it from my memory. So I don't want to know anything more about Alone in the Dark 2. Amanda, what kind of score would you give Alone in the Dark? And is it taking the cake for you as the worst film we've talked about?
Dude, I'm not even going to give this a score because I don't think I could put it on any scale. It's there's no way you can rate this. If you even gave it a number, it's too high. If you gave it a negative, that's just giving it too much credit. And this is definitely by far the worst thing that we've seen in the series.
All right, a strong opinion from Hard Candy Mandy.
So its score is void. It's like that's the score.
It's a void. There's a blank spot next to me in a score for this one. I guess I'll give it a 1.
Give it a 0.
I'll give it a 1 out of 10 because I don't know why. I really have no reason to give it anything but a 0, but I'll give it a 1 just on an outside chance that there's a movie out there that might even score worse than it, I guess, is my rationale for that. But this, for me, is the worst film we've talked about so far, just barely edging out House of the Dead. So, wow. If you like Alone in the Dark...
Don't talk to us anymore.
No, we do not. No, if you like, don't talk to Amanda anymore if you like Alone in the Dark. But please,
I will fucking hate you.
No, please comment on the website. Tweet to us or something because I would love to hear the rationale for why this worked for you.
No, go back under the rock that you came from, and don't even get on Twitter because I'm gonna light a freaking torch and grab a pitchfork and I'm coming for you.
Jesus.
Is it not ironic like it because it's so bad, but generally think it's a good movie?
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. I don't mean you like it like you like Sharknado or something like that.
Which is funny when Tara Reid, when Sharknado is a bright spot in Tara Reid's career because of this movie. It's like, well, at least she wasn't Alone in the Dark 2. She's only in Sharknado 4. So
Sharknado has something to look at and has some fun and funny to it.
Yeah.
Oh, Lord. All right, so that's going to do it for this week. Next week, we'll probably get into something besides video game films so we can take a quick break and let our brains recover. But when we return to look at more video game films, next up on the docket, also from 2005, just like Alone in the Dark, is a film called Doom.
I can get behind that because that's The Rock, right?
That's The Rock.
So, October 2005, we got Doom, and we're going to review it and let you guys know if it's better than what we've just talked about. But before that, we'll give
Before
you guys...
that, I want to apologize that you even listened to this, because this is a total waste to even watch this. So I can't even imagine what taking the time to listen us destroy this is going to do to your life.
Anybody that wants to hear the whole video game series to see what exactly each video... We're doing a social justice by doing this series, actually. We are watching these films so others don't have to.
Exactly, because don't do it. Just don't do it.
But before we get back into the video game series with Doom, we'll give you some other episodes. We're going to get back into the Hayao Miyazaki spotlight and give you another review of one of his films, and we'll reveal more of our top 100 films of all time, our personal list. So we'll do those in between, and then we'll get back to Doom. But for now, we'd like you to go to the website, geekcastradio.com, find the episode posts, go ahead and leave us a comment there. Let us know how you're liking the video game series franchise, and if you agree or disagree with us as Alone in the Dark being the worst film we've reviewed so far or not. If you want to get in contact with us on the Twitter world, you can tweet the show at Cinema Geekcast. You can tweet me at Optimus Solo. You can tweet Amanda at
Hard Candy Mandy, Eyes No Eyes.
You can tweet Dan at
Alone Dark Lover, no, at Movie Revolt.
And you can tweet Matt at
I'm at Fridley Scent.
All right, so please tweet us, leave comments, but keep listening either way, because we'll be back next week with another episode of The Cinema Geeks.